The Laṅkāvatāra Sutra, translated by Red Pine and read by Angus Cargill. Chapter 3. More Questions. The Bhagavan then told Mahāmati Bodhisattva, "I will now tell you the different characteristics common to the projection body. Listen carefully and ponder this well." Mahāmati said, "Wonderful Bhagavan, may we be so instructed." The Buddha told Mahāmati, "There are three kinds of projection bodies. And what are the three kinds? They are the projection body that experiences the bliss of samadhi, the projection body that realizes the essential nature of dharmas, and the projection body whose natural state is motionless. Once practitioners reach the first stage, they will obtain these three bodies as they progress through the subsequent stages." Mahāmati, what is the projection body that experiences the bliss of samadhi? When those at the third, fourth, and fifth stages experience the bliss of samadhi, their myriad thoughts become still. Though they dwell in the ocean of the mind, the waves of consciousness cease, and they realize that whatever they perceive is nothing but their own mind, and does not exist by itself. This is what is meant by the projection body that experiences the bliss of samadhi. Mahāmati, what is the projection body that realizes the essential nature of dharmas? When those at the eighth stage contemplate and understand that all dharmas are illusory and devoid of anything real, they experience a transformation of mind and body and attain the samadhi of the illusory. And while in this and other samadhis, they are adorned with the powers, masteries, and knowledge of limitless forms that unfold like flowers as fast as their thoughts. But like illusions or dreams or moonlight on the water or reflections in a mirror, they are not created of or by material elements, though they might seem to be. With their every limb thus adorned by all manner of attributes, they enter the Buddhist assemblies of every land, where they become versed in the nature of dharmas. This is what is meant by the projection body that realizes the essential nature of dharmas. Mahāmati, what is the projection body whose natural state is motionless? The realization that the characteristics of all the teachings of all the Buddhas are based on the bliss of personal attainment, this is what is meant by the projection body whose natural state is motionless. Mahāmati, the contemplation and understanding of the characteristics of these three bodies are something you should cultivate. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. "My path is not a great path, nor is it instruction or words, nor is it truth or liberation, nor is it a realm of nothingness. The path of the Mahayana includes the power of samadhi, different projection bodies, adornments of self-mastery." Mahāmati Bodhisattva then asked the Buddha, "Bhagavan, the Bhagavan has said that a man or woman who commits the 5 avicci deeds does not fall into avicci hell. Bhagavan, how is it that a man or woman who commits the 5 avicci deeds does not fall into avicci hell?" The Buddha told Mahāmati, "Listen carefully and ponder this well, and I will tell you." Mahāmati said, "Wonderful Bhagavan, may we be so instructed." The Buddha told Mahāmati, "What are the 5 avicci deeds? They are killing one's father or one's mother, killing an arhat, disrupting the Sangha, and maliciously drawing the blood of a Buddha. Mahāmati, what is the mother of every being? It is desire and joy, together with the thirst to be reborn, on which one depends as if on one's mother. And ignorance is the father by means of which one is born into the village of the senses. Severing these two roots is what is meant by killing one's mother and one's father. And when the passions that lie hidden, like plague-infected rats, are exterminated, this is what is meant by killing an arhat. And what is meant by disrupting the Sangha? When the assembly of different characteristics that form the skandhas is utterly destroyed, this is what is meant by disrupting the Sangha. Mahāmati, because the body of the seven forms of consciousness is unaware that external characteristics, be they individual or shared, are nothing but perceptions of one's own mind, one uses the merciless purity of the three liberations to behead the Buddha of the seven forms of consciousness once and for all. This is what is meant by maliciously drawing the blood of a Buddha. Mahāmati, any man or woman who commits such deeds, namely the 5 unrelenting deeds, are themselves called unrelenting. Moreover, Mahāmati, I will now tell you about the external avijji deeds, so that once you and the other bodhisattvas have heard this, you will not be prone to foolishness in the future. And what are these avijji deeds? They are the 5 avijji deeds I first spoke of. Anyone who commits these cannot attain any of the 3 liberations. But aside from such avijji deeds as these, there are also avijji deeds manifested by spiritual power. This refers to the spiritual power of Shravakas, the spiritual power of bodhisattvas, and the spiritual power of tathāgatas, who use their powers of transformation to manifest avijji deeds in order to encourage others who commit avijji crimes to put an end to their transgressions. However, those who keep committing avijji deeds cannot avoid what is unrelenting. Only if they become aware that these are nothing but perceptions of their own mind, and they abandon projections of a body and what belongs to a body, and attachments to a self and what belongs to a self, or they eventually meet a good friend, can they escape their projections of continuity in another existence. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. Desire is the mother, ignorance is the father, the Buddha is consciousness of objective realms, passions are the arhats, and the skandhas are the Sangha. Who is unrelenting in their extermination, who commits these 5 avijji deeds, doesn't enter avijji hell. Mahāmati once more asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, please tell us about a Buddha's awareness. Bhagavan, what constitutes a Buddha's awareness? The Buddha told Mahāmati, it consists in realizing that there is no self in beings or things, in understanding the 2 obstructions, in transcending the 2 kinds of death, and in putting an end to the 2 kinds of affliction. This is what is meant by the awareness of a Buddha. Those Shravakas and Prachika Buddhas capable of this are also called Buddhas. This is the reason I teach one path. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. Knowing the 2 kinds of no-self, ending the 2 obstructions and afflictions, transcending forever the 2 kinds of death, such is the awareness of Buddhas. Mahāmati then asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, why did the Bhagavan proclaim to the assembly, I am all Buddhas of the past? Or why, in recounting the hundreds of thousands of tales about his previous lives, did he say, I was once King Mandatri, a six-tusked elephant, a parrot, Shakra, and Sunetra? The Buddha told Mahāmati, it was because of the four uniformities that the Tathāgata, the Arhat, the fully enlightened one, proclaimed to the assembly, I was once Krakuchanda, Kanaka Muni, and Kashyapa Buddha. And what are the four uniformities? They are the uniformity of syllables, the uniformity of voices, the uniformity of teachings, and the uniformity of bodies. These are the four uniformities. It was on the basis of these four uniformities that the Tathāgata, the Arhat, the fully enlightened one, made such a proclamation to the assembly. And what is meant by the uniformity of syllables? This means that whatever syllables are used in calling me a Buddha, those syllables are also used in calling all Tathāgatas Buddhas. The essential nature of the syllables doesn't differ. This is what is meant by the uniformity of syllables. And what is meant by the uniformity of voices? This means that the 64 transcendent sounds that characterize my voice, those 64 transcendent sounds likewise characterize the voices of all Tathāgatas, Arhats, and fully enlightened ones, and are neither more nor fewer nor different than the transcendent sounds of the Kalavinka. And what is meant by the uniformity of bodies? This means that there are no differences among the Dharma bodies, or among the marks and attributes of the physical bodies of myself and other Buddhas. It is only in order to instruct beings in different realms that we appear in different guises. This is what is meant by the uniformity of bodies. And what is meant by the uniformity of teachings? This refers to teachings regarding the 37 elements of awareness attained by myself and other Buddhas. In short, we all speak the Dharma with unobstructed wisdom. This is what is meant by the four uniformities. And this is why the Tathāgata, the Arhat, the fully enlightened one, made such a proclamation to the assembly. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. Kashyapa and Krakuchanda, Kanaka Muni was I as well. By means of these four uniformities, I teach all bodhisattvas. Mahāmati once more asked the Buddha, the Bhagavan has said, from the night I attained perfect enlightenment until the night I enter nirvana, between the two I do not speak, nor have I spoken, nor will I speak a single word, for not speaking is how a Buddha speaks. Bhagavan, why does the Tathāgata, the Arhat, the fully enlightened one, say, not speaking is how a Buddha speaks? The Buddha told Mahāmati, it is because of two truths that I make such a statement as this. And which two? They are the truth that depends on personal realization and the ever-present truth. These are the two truths. It is because of these two truths that I make such a statement. And what do I mean by the truth that depends on personal realization? Whatever other Tathāgatas realize, I also realize, nothing more, nothing less. But the ultimate realm of the truth that depends on personal realization is beyond explanations or distinctions, and beyond dualistic terms. And what do I mean by the ever-present truth? This refers to the way of the ancient sages. The Dharma realm is ever-present, like the nature of gold or silver. Whether a Tathāgata appears in the world or does not appear in the world, the Dharma realm is ever-present. It is like a road that leads to a city. Imagine a man walking in the wilderness who sees this straight and level road leading toward an ancient city and follows it to that city where he enjoys whatever he desires. Mahāmati, what do you think? Did he make the road or that city's delights? Mahāmati answered, no. The Buddha told Mahāmati, the ever-present Dharma realm of myself and all Buddhas of the past is also like this. This is the reason I say that from the night of my enlightenment until I enter nirvana, between the two, I do not speak, nor have I spoken, nor will I speak a single word. The Bhagavan then repeated the meaning of this in verse. From the night of my enlightenment until the night of my nirvana, between these two events, I speak not a word. Based on the self-realized and ever-present truths, I therefore make this proclamation. All Buddhas and myself, in nothing do we differ. Mahāmati once more asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, please explain what characterizes the existence and non-existence of things, so that once I and the other bodhisattvas get free of the characteristics of existence and non-existence, we might quickly attain unexcelled complete enlightenment. The Buddha told Mahāmati, listen carefully and ponder it well, and I will tell you. Mahāmati replied, wonderful Bhagavan, may we be so instructed. The Buddha told Mahāmati, there are two things people in this world depend on. They depend on existence and on non-existence. And as they fall prey to existence and to non-existence, they try to imagine escape where there is no escape. Mahāmati, how do the people of this world depend on existence? They think the world arises from causes and conditions that exist, and it does not do so in their absence. It arises from existence. It does not arise from non-existence. Anyone who would claim that, Mahāmati, says the world has no cause. And how, Mahāmati, does the world depend on what does not exist? Once people think of desire, anger, and delusion as existing, they imagine the non-existence of desire, anger, and delusion, that by not perceiving their existence, Mahāmati, the characteristics of their existence become still. Therefore, they think because they don't perceive the existence of desire, anger, and delusion among Tathāgatas, Shravakas, or Pratyeka Buddhas, they exist, then don't exist. Mahāmati, which of these are nihilists? Mahāmati replied, Bhagavan, those who perceive the existence of desire, anger, and delusion, then don't perceive it. The Buddha told Mahāmati, well said. It is as you understand, Mahāmati. Not only are they nihilists in regard to the existence and non-existence of desire, anger, and delusion, they are also nihilists in regard to Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Tathāgatas. And how so? Because afflictions cannot be seen internally or externally, and because their existence is different and not different. Mahāmati, desire, anger, and delusion cannot be seen internally or externally, because desire, anger, and delusion, have no substance, and because there is nothing to see. It is not Shravakas, Tathāgatas, or Pratyeka Buddhas who are nihilists. The essential nature of Tathāgatas, Shravakas, and Pratyeka Buddhas is liberation, because neither bondage nor the cause of bondage exist. Mahāmati, if bondage existed, the cause of such bondage would be bondage. Mahāmati, nihilists who speak like this are referring to what has no appearance. Mahāmati, this is why I say it is better to believe in a self as big as Mount Sumeru than to give rise to the vain and empty view of nothingness. Mahāmati, the vanity of nothingness is what characterizes nihilists. Falling prey to views and longings regarding individual or shared characteristics, they don't realize these are nothing but the perceptions of their own minds. Meanwhile, they see external existence as impermanent, as disappearing from one moment to the next, and the continuity of the skandhas, the dhatus, and the ayatanas as passing away. And they imagine this is what transcends speech and words. But this is what is meant by nihilism. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. The extremes of existence and non-existence, these are realms of the mind. Who purifies these realms stills their entire mind. When external realms are not perceived, their cessation does not mean nothingness. Everything is real, as it is in the realm of sages. Things not existing then arising, or having arisen then ceasing, or existing or not due to causes, these have no place in my teaching. Not due to a Buddha or some other teacher, not me or anyone else. Things arise when causes combine. How could they be due to nothing? Who says things exist due to causes, then speaks of their non-existence, speaks of arising based on wrong views, falsely imagines things existing, then not. Who knows that nothing arises, also that nothing ceases, who sees everything as empty and still, transcends non-existence and existence. Mahāmati once again asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, please tell me and the other bodhisattvas what characterizes the way of attainment, so that once I and the other bodhisattvas become skilled in understanding what characterizes the way of attainment, we will know its characteristics, and by knowing its characteristics, we will quickly attain unexcelled, perfect enlightenment, and not be misled by speculations or the maras of other paths. The Buddha told Mahāmati, listen carefully and ponder it well, and I will tell you. Mahāmati replied, may we be so instructed. The Buddha told Mahāmati, among Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, there are two ways, the way of attainment and the way of instruction. Mahāmati, the way of attainment refers to the distinctive characteristics of personal realization that transcend the projections of speech and words, that lead to the passionless realm and the stages marked by self-awareness, that are free from erroneous speculations, that overcome the maras of other paths, and that shine forth from inner awareness. These are the characteristics of the way of attainment. And what are the characteristics of the way of instruction? This refers to instruction in the 9 types of teachings, that is free from such characteristics as sameness and difference, or existence and non-existence, and that uses means appropriate to the person, in teaching the Dharma to help others attain liberation. These are the characteristics of the way of instruction, Mahāmati, and these are what you and the other bodhisattvas should cultivate. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. The ways of attainment and instruction are based on realization and teaching. Those who see and distinguish these clearly don't pursue speculation. Non-existence as reality, this is what fools imagine. But why do they imagine non-existence as liberation? Contemplate conditioned things, the cycle of arising and cessation, the nourishing of dualities, mistaken views and ignorance. This one thing is true. Freedom from blame is nirvana. View projections of the world as illusions, as dreams, as banana tree trunks. Through desire, though desire, anger, and delusion exist, there is no person present. The skandhas arise from thirst. Their existence is a dream or illusion. Mahāmati once again asked the Buddha, "Bhagavan, please explain what characterizes false projections. How do false projections arise? What constitutes a false projection? And where are false projections found?" The Buddha told Mahāmati, "Excellent. It is excellent that you are able to ask the Tathāgata about this, for the welfare of the many, for the happiness of the many, out of pity for all the gods and people in this world. Listen carefully and ponder this well, and I will tell you." Mahāmati replied, "Wonderful Bhagavan, may we be so instructed." The Buddha told Mahāmati, "Projections arise when there is attachment to the misperception of different objects. Mahāmati, because people are unaware that their attachments to projections of what they grasp and of the one who grasps are nothing but perceptions of their own minds, they fall prey to views of existence and non-existence, in which they are abetted by the views of followers of other paths and the habit energy of their projections. And as they become attached to different external objects, the mind and what belongs to the mind give rise to the projection of a self and what belongs to a self." Mahāmati said, "Bhagavan, since projections arise when there is attachment to the misperception of different objects, and people are unaware that the projections of what they grasp and of the one who grasps are nothing but perceptions of their own minds, and they fall prey to views of existence and non-existence in which they are abetted by the views of followers of other paths and the habit energy of their projections, and as they become attached to various external objects, the mind and what belongs to the mind give rise to the projection of a self and what belongs to a self. Since this is so, Bhagavan, when they fall prey to the existence or non-existence of different external objects that neither exist nor do not exist, and that transcend the characteristics of views, Bhagavan, this is also true of ultimate truth, which transcends the characteristics of measurement, sensation, inference, analogy, and causation. Why, on the one hand, Bhagavan, does attachment to the discrimination of the existence of an unreal object give rise to projections, and on the other hand, attachment to ultimate truth not give rise to projections? Are you not teaching a false doctrine of causation, Bhagavan, when you say the one gives rise to them and the other does not? The Buddha said, Mahāmati, It is not true that one projection arises and the other does not. And why not? Because projections of existence or non-existence do not arise. Projections do not arise when the external objects that appear as existing or not existing are seen to be nothing but perceptions of one's own mind. Mahāmati, I tell foolish people that because the different projections of their minds appear before them as objects, they become attached to the existence of their projections. So, how do they get free of views of attachment to a self, or what belongs to a self, and get free of the misconception of causation as cause and effect? By becoming aware that their projections are nothing but mind. Thus do they transform their body and mind, and finally see clearly all the stages and realms of self-awareness of Tathāgatas, and transcend views and projections regarding the Five Dharmas and modes of reality. This is why I say that projections arise from the attachment to things that are unreal, and that once someone knows what is real, they free themselves from the various projections of their own mind. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. Who says the world arises from causes and conditions, imagines the four possibilities, but doesn't understand my teaching? It neither arises nor doesn't arise, nor both of these nor neither. So why do fools imagine the world's causes and conditions? Who sees the world like this, neither existing nor not existing, nor both of these nor neither, transforms their mind and finds no self. Whatever exists does not arise, because it arises from conditions. Whatever results from conditions is a result and not self-existent. Nor does a result produce a result. Twin results are a fallacy. Since twin results cannot occur, their existence cannot be found. Viewing conditioned things without support and supporting nothing, as nothing but the no-mind mind, thus I teach nothing but mind. Where only essential nature dwells, free from existence and conditions, where existence is finally purified, this, I say, is nothing but mind. The conventional self is a fabrication, containing nothing real. The skandhas too are fabrications, containing nothing real as well. Equalities are fourfold: characteristics, causes, and results. No self is the third. Practice and practitioner are the fourth. As the habit energy of projections change, the mind gives rise to a myriad things. An objective realm appears outside, a world that is nothing but mind. What appears outside does not exist. All the things seen by the mind, your abode, body, and possessions, these I teach are nothing but mind. Transcending every view, free from conceiving and conception, where nothing arises and nothing is found, this I teach is nothing but mind. Neither existing nor not existing, free from existence and non-existence. The liberation of this mind, this I teach is nothing but mind. Emptiness, suchness, and reality, nirvana and the Dharma realm, the different projection bodies, these too, I teach, are nothing but mind. Mahāmati once again asked the Buddha, the Bhagavan has said that bodhisattvas should become versed in speech and meaning. Bhagavan, how should bodhisattvas become versed in speech and meaning? What is speech and what is meaning? The Buddha said, listen carefully, Mahāmati, and ponder it well, and I will tell you." Mahāmati replied, "Wonderful Bhagavan, may we be so instructed." The Buddha told Mahāmati, "What is speech? It is the combination of projections and of words that rely on the throat and larynx, the tongue and lips, the teeth and gums, and the sides of the mouth. And it arises due to attachment to the habit energy of the discriminations of one's own and others' words. This is what is meant by speech. And what is meaning? It is what transcends all the characteristics of projections and the characteristics of speech. This is what is meant by meaning. It is thus in regard to meaning, Mahāmati, that bodhisattvas dwell in solitude and proceed toward the city of nirvana as a result of their own understanding of wisdom from learning, reflection, and meditation. And once they have transformed their habit energy, they contemplate the distinctive characteristics of the meaning of the various stages leading to the realm of personal realization. This is what is meant by how bodhisattvas become versed in meaning. Moreover, Mahāmati, bodhisattvas versed in speech and meaning regard speech as neither separate nor not separate from meaning, and they also regard meaning and speech in the same manner. If speech were separate from meaning, meaning would not be expressed by speech. But it is by means of speech that we understand meaning, just as a lamp illuminates forms. Moreover, Mahāmati, if someone becomes attached to the meaning of such expressions as neither arising nor ceasing, self-existence, nirvana, three paths, one path, mind, or modes of reality, they fall prey to views of assertion and denial, assertions of difference and projections of difference, whereby projections appear like so many illusions. As with illusions, fools imagine differences, not the wise. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. Those who give rise to projections of speech assert all kinds of things. Because of their assertions, they spend their next life in hell. The self isn't in the skandhas. The skandhas aren't the self. Such conceptions are mistaken. Nor is there no self as well. As for everything exists, which is what fools imagine, if things were as they see them, they would see the truth. And as for nothing at all exists, pure and impure both would vanish. Things are not as they are seen, nor are there no things. Mahāmati, I will now explain the characteristics of knowledge and consciousness. For by becoming adept at distinguishing the characteristics of knowledge and consciousness, you and the other bodhisattvas will be able to understand the characteristics of knowledge and consciousness and quickly realize unexcelled, complete enlightenment. Mahāmati, there are three kinds of knowledge: mundane knowledge, metaphysical knowledge, and transcendent knowledge. What is mundane knowledge? This refers to that of all those ordinary people and followers of other paths who are attached to existence and non-existence. And what is metaphysical knowledge? This refers to that of those Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas who fall prey to longing for and becoming attached to individual and shared characteristics. And what is transcendent knowledge? This refers to that of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who contemplate what is free from projections and see that it neither arises nor ceases, that it transcends categories of existence and non-existence, and that the Tathāgata stage and the absence of a self among persons and things depend on the occurrence of personal attainment. Mahāmati, what arises and ceases is consciousness. What neither arises nor ceases is knowledge. Furthermore, it is consciousness that falls prey to characteristics and the absence of characteristics, and also falls prey to the causes of the different characteristics of existence and non-existence, while it is knowledge that transcends the characteristics of existence and non-existence. Furthermore, consciousness is characterized by increase, while knowledge is not characterized by increase. Also, there are three objects of knowledge: the knowledge of arising and cessation, the knowledge of the individual and shared characteristics, and the knowledge of non-arising and non-cessation. Moreover, knowledge is also characterized by the absence of obstructions, while consciousness is characterized by the obstruction of countless external realms. Furthermore, consciousness is characterized by what arises from threefold combinations, while knowledge is characterized by the absence of anything self-existent. Furthermore, consciousness is characterized by attainment, while knowledge is characterized by non-attainment, for the realm of Buddha knowledge that one attains is neither present nor absent, like the moon in the water. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. Consciousness accumulates karma, knowledge examines dharmas, wisdom penetrates projectionless realms, thereby attaining powers. Consciousness is tied to objects. Knowledge sees how thoughts are born from projectionless realms and higher stages. This is where wisdom rises. Whose mind, will, and consciousness get free of all projections, who grasp the teaching of non-projection, are bodhisattvas, not Shravakas. Tranquil and supreme forbearance, the pure knowledge of a Buddha, these rise from the best of truths, which transcends every practice. I have three kinds of knowledge, whereby the wise reveal the truth. All concern projections, the things that people cling to. Unconcerned with lesser paths, such knowledge is free from objective realms, while from Shravakas rises attachment to self-existence, transcendent and nothing but mind. A Buddha's knowledge is pure. Furthermore, Mahāmati, the views of change held by followers of other paths come from their 9 doctrines about change. These include change of shape, change of characteristic, change of cause, change of connection, change of view, change of existence, change of perceptible condition, change of perceptible function, and change of origin. Mahāmati, these are their 9 views of change. It is on the basis of these that followers of other paths produce their doctrines of change concerning existence and non-existence. What is a change of shape? This refers to the view that there is a difference in shape. For example, when gold is turned into utensils or ornaments, it takes on the appearance of different shapes, although the nature of gold doesn't change. This is how anything that exists changes. And this is how followers of other paths imagine change, up to and including their projection of a change of origin. Something is not as it was, but neither is it different. This is the result of projection. This is how anything that exists changes. It is like the aging of milk and curds, or of fruit and wine. Followers of other paths imagine change where there is no change. Something seems to be there, and seems not to be there. But it is merely the perception of their own minds of an external entity that does not exist, which foolish people give rise to. Mahāmati, due to the habit energy of their own projections. Mahāmati, though something seems to arise and seems to cease, there is nothing there. It is like seeing an image appear in a magic trick or a dream. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. A shape that changes over time, 4 elements and 5 senses, slowly rising in the skandhas, a fantasy, not knowledge. Sages regard what comes from causes, unlike others imagine. The world that comes from causes is a city of Gandharvas. Mahāmati once more asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, would you please explain the meaning of the continuity and non-continuity of things? For once I and the other bodhisattvas become adept at distinguishing the characteristics of the continuity and non-continuity of things, we will better understand how all continuities work, and will not become attached to a continuity because of how its meaning is expressed in words. For once we are versed in the characteristics of the continuity and non-continuity of things, and we transcend the erroneous projections of language, we will know how to travel to all Buddha lands and to their countless assemblies, where our myriad transformations will be marked by spiritual powers, masteries, faculties and spells, and will shine like so many suns or moons or magic gems upon the 4 elements with the refulgent light of wisdom gained from the effortless exercise of the 10 inexhaustible vows. And wherever we dwell, we will look upon everything as an illusion or a dream, and will avoid views characterized by the projection of a self. And upon reaching the stage of Buddhas, in every realm where there are beings, we will teach whatever teaching they respond to, and lead them to transform themselves by accepting that everything is like a dream or illusion, and by avoiding categories of existence and non-existence, and projections of arising and cessation, or the teachings of other paths. The Buddha told Mahāmati, well said, well said. Listen carefully and ponder it well, and I will tell you. Mahāmati replied, May we be so instructed. The Buddha told Mahāmati, attachments to continuities based on how their meaning is expressed in words are limitless. There is attachment to the continuity of characteristics, attachment to the continuity of conditions, attachment to the continuity of existence and non-existence, attachment to the continuity of the projection of arising and non-arising, attachment to the continuity of the projection of cessation and non-cessation, attachment to the continuity of the projection of a path and no path, attachment to the continuity of the projection of the created and the uncreated, attachment to the continuity of the projection of the individual characteristics of the stages, attachment to the continuity of the projection of attainment and of projection itself, attachment to the continuity of the projection of categories of existence and non-existence on which other paths depend, and attachment to the continuity of the projection of attainment of the 3 paths, or the one path. Furthermore, Mahāmati, foolish beings project continuities other than these. But it is because of their projection of such continuities that they are like silkworms making cocoons, using the thread of projection to envelop themselves and others in attachments to the characteristics of continuities of existence and non-existence. Furthermore, Mahāmati, for those who see that everything is still, there are no characteristics of continuity or non-continuity in any of this. But it is due to the non-arising of projections that bodhisattvas see that everything is still. Moreover, Mahāmati, know that external entities do not exist, that their characteristics are perceptions of your own mind and free of projections. Accordingly, when you see that whatever exists or does not exist is simply a perception of your own mind, and without form, continuities become still. Thus, there are no characteristics of the continuity or non-continuity of anything. Moreover, Mahāmati, although others, given to falsehood, think bondage and emancipation exist, there is nothing in any of this to be bound to or emancipated from. And why is this so? Because among what exists or does not exist, no beings can be found. Furthermore, Mahāmati, the ignorant possess three continuities: greed, anger, and delusion, together with the desire for happiness in a future existence. Because of such continuities, there is the continuity of existence, and among these continuities are links to the five destinies. However, Mahāmati, for those who put an end to continuities, there are no characteristics of continuity or non-continuity. Moreover, Mahāmati, because of the active grasping of consciousness based on threefold combinations, continuities arise without interruption. It is because of such active grasping that continuities exist. Meanwhile, those who put an end to those forms of consciousness dependent on threefold combinations witness the threefold liberation and the non-arising of continuities. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. Projections that are false, these characterize continuities. Once you know what is real, continuity's net is cut. Fools don't understand. They look for meaning in words like silkworms in cocoons, wrapped in their own imaginations. Mahāmati once more asked the Buddha, the Bhagavan has said it is due to projections that we imagine the existence of different things, and it isn't they themselves that exist, but only the projection of them that exists. Bhagavan, if it is only the projection of them that exists, and their own corresponding existence does not exist, would not the affliction and purification of which the Bhagavan speaks also suffer from non-existence, since the existence of whatever is imagined does not itself exist? The Buddha told Mahāmati, so it is, so it is. It is as you say, Mahāmati. What is real is not what fools imagine as existing. What they imagine as existing lacks any characteristic of its own existence. However, Mahāmati, according to Buddha knowledge, there is something that exists, something the existence of which is known by means of the noble insight and noble vision of the eye of noble wisdom. Mahāmati asked the Buddha, although those who are wise thus know what exists by means of the noble insight and noble vision of the eye of noble wisdom, and not by means of any kind of divine or physical eye, this is not what fools imagine, Bhagavan. How then do fools get free from such projections if they are unaware of a higher reality? For they are neither deluded, Bhagavan, nor are they not deluded. And how so? Because they are not aware of the existence of a higher reality, and because they do not see what transcends the characteristics of existence and non-existence. Bhagavan, the wise do not view what they imagine as real in this manner, because they do not consider the individual characteristics of an external realm as external. Bhagavan, they thus perceive the characteristics of self-existence as an imagined reality, and do not say it is due to the presence or absence of causes, but due to falling prey to views of existence, and that theirs is a different realm unlike that. But this is a circular argument, Bhagavan, because the characteristics of self-existence are not known. Also, Bhagavan, if the characteristics of self-existence are not the result of an imagined reality, how is their projection not a projection, but rather a discrimination of suchness? Bhagavan, projections differ, and the characteristics of self-existence differ. Bhagavan, because the characteristics of self-existence and their projections are not the same, how do people know what is not real if they don't imagine anything? But you say, what beings imagine does not really exist, in order to free them from projections. Bhagavan, why prevent beings from becoming attached to views of existence and non-existence if they then end up becoming attached to views of the existence of the realm in which Buddha knowledge functions? Why teach the non-existence of detachment and then teach the existence of Buddha knowledge? The Buddha told Mahāmati, I do not teach the non-existence of detachment, nor do I fall prey to views of existence in speaking of the higher reality of Buddha knowledge. Rather, it is to help beings who have been attached to existence since time without beginning overcome their fears. To those attached to views of the existence of a higher reality, I teach detachment, Mahāmati. I do not teach characteristics of self-existence. Rather, Mahāmati, I focus on the personal realization of detachment, on transcending deluded views, on transcending views of what exists or does not exist that are perceptions of one's own mind, on obtaining the threefold liberation, on being marked with the mark of suchness, on examining self-existence based on personal realization, and on transcending views of the existence or non-existence of what is real. Furthermore, Mahāmati, bodhisattvas should not maintain the proposition, whatever exists does not arise. And why not? Because the proposition about the existence of things would not exist, and because its reason would be characterized by arising. To state the proposition, whatever exists does not arise, contradicts itself. The proposition, whatever exists does not arise, contradicts itself because the proposition would arise in relation to something, and also because a proposition concerning the non-arising of things would be among those things, and because its cessation would not arise. Thus, to maintain the proposition, whatever exists does not arise, is contradicted by the proposition itself. Mahāmati, as for the proposition, existence and non-existence do not arise, such a proposition would be among the things that exist, although characteristics of its existence or non-existence would not. Mahāmati, even if in regard to the proposition of non-arising, one could maintain the proposition, whatever exists does not arise, this proposition is contradicted, because the characteristics of its existence or non-existence do not arise. You should not maintain propositions. The five-part syllogism produces numerous errors due to differing characteristics and changing reasons, and because they are fabrications. Hence, you should not maintain propositions. As with whatever exists does not arise, likewise in regard to whatever exists is empty, or whatever exists has no self-existence, you should not maintain propositions. Mahāmati, bodhisattvas say instead, whatever exists is like an illusion or a dream, because it is seen and not seen, and because it is a mistake of perception. You should say that the existence of everything is like that of an illusion or a dream, unless it makes people turn away in fear. Mahāmati, foolish people are given to views of existence and non-existence. Don't make them turn away in fear from the Mahayana. The Bhagavan then repeated the meaning of this in verse. There is no teaching and no self-existence, no objects and no attachments. These are the projections of fools, the misperceptions of corpses. Whatever exists does not arise. This doctrine of other schools is wrong. Nothing at all arises. What exists results from conditions. Whatever exists does not arise. The wise hold no such conception, because propositions arise from reasons. The wise get rid of them all. Like seeing through a cataract, the distorted view through strands of hair, projections of existence are the misperceptions of fools. Fabrications fill the three realms. Self-existent objects do not exist. Fabricating self-existent objects, projection gives rise to projection. The forms and objects of fabrication utterly confuse the mind. Bodhisattvas who see past these dispense with all projections. Perceiving water where there is none, the result of thirst and desire, fools are thus bewildered, unlike the wise who see. The vision of the wise is clear. Arising from samadhis of the three liberations, beyond the reach of birth or death, they wander in a realm of no projection. Practitioners dwell in a projectionless realm, free from existence and non-existence, where existence and non-existence merge, and the fruit of Buddhahood grows. As for existence and non-existence, as for how they merge, because the mind doesn't know, confusion swirls inside and out. Once you make them stop, your mind will behold their identity. Mahāmati once more asked, the Bhagavan has said knowledge is not obtained from an objectified world because it would consist in nothing more than the assertion of projections. Since a projection that can be grasped does not exist, nor does the one who grasps, grasping does not occur. Thus, knowledge does not arise, only the names of projections. But how is it, Bhagavan? Is it because we do not perceive whether the individual or shared characteristics of what exists are different or not, that knowledge is not obtained? Or is it because it is obscured by the variety of the individual or shared characteristics of what exists, that knowledge is not obtained? Or is it because it is blocked by mountains or walls, or by the elements of earth, water, fire, or wind, that knowledge is not obtained? Or is it because it is too distant or too near, that knowledge is not obtained? Or is it because of blindness or dimness of wit or impaired senses due to immaturity or old age that knowledge is not obtained? Bhagavan, if it is because we don't perceive whether the individual or shared characteristics of what exists are different or not, that knowledge is not obtained, then we should not speak of knowledge, but of an absence of knowledge, because something exists but isn't perceived. Or if it is because it is obscured by the variety of the individual and shared characteristics of what exists that knowledge is not obtained, that too is an absence of knowledge, not knowledge. Bhagavan, knowledge arises where there is something knowable, not where nothing exists. It is because we encounter what is knowable that we speak of knowledge. If it is because it is blocked by mountains or walls, or by the elements of earth, water, fire, or wind, or because it is too distant or too close, or because of blindness or dimness of wit, or impaired senses due to immaturity or old age, that knowledge is not obtained, that too is not knowledge, but an absence of knowledge. Because something exists, but cannot be perceived. The Buddha told Mahāmati, "It is not so. The absence of knowledge is knowledge, not no knowledge. I am not concealing anything when I say that knowledge is not obtained from an objectified world, because it would consist in nothing but the assertion of projections. When you perceive that what exists or does not exist is nothing but a perception of your own mind, and that external existence does not exist, you know without perceiving objects. It is because nothing is perceived that the knowledge of something knowable does not arise. Even among the three liberations, knowledge is not obtained. Those whose discriminations consist in the habit energy of beginningless fabrications of existence and non-existence would not know something like this. They are unaware of such knowledge. Therefore, I teach that the ceaseless projection of the existence or non-existence of an external world of objects is based on nothing but the perceptions of one's own mind. But because beings are attached to grasping the characteristics of a self, and what belongs to a self, they do not perceive that these are nothing but perceptions of their own minds, and give rise instead to projections of knowledge and something knowable. Because of such projections, they are unable to ascertain the existence or non-existence of anything external, and base themselves on nihilistic views. The Bhagavan then repeated the meaning of this in verse. There is an objectified world, beyond the reach of knowledge, and the absence of knowledge isn't knowledge. This is what those who imagine things say. Something exists without distinctions, beyond the reach of knowledge, too near, too far, or somehow obstructed. This I call false knowledge. Among the young, the old, or impaired, knowledge doesn't arise, yet something exists as knowable. This too I call false knowledge. Furthermore, Mahāmati, foolish beings are confused by the habit energy of beginningless fabrications and projections, and once they are confused, they do not easily understand the way of personal attainment or the way of instruction, because they are attached to characteristics of external existence that are perceptions of their own minds, and attached to explanations of expedience. They are not adept at distinguishing the characteristics of a way of personal attainment that does not include the four possibilities. Mahāmati addressed the Buddha. It is indeed as the Bhagavan teaches. may the Bhagavan please distinguish the way of instruction and the way of attainment for us, so that I and the other bodhisattvas will become adept at both, and so that the foolish people, Shravakas, and Pratyeka Buddhas of future ages will not be left wanting. The Buddha told Mahāmati, "Well said, well said. Listen carefully and ponder it well, and I will tell you." Mahāmati said, "May we be so instructed." The Buddha told Mahāmati, "The Tathāgatas of the 3 ages teach 2 ways, the way of instruction and the way of personal attainment. The way of instruction means teaching the different texts and sutras appropriate to the minds of beings. This is what is meant by the way of instruction. The way of personal attainment is for practitioners who free themselves from the different projections that are perceptions of their own minds. This means not falling prey to categories of sameness or difference, or both or neither, transcending completely the mind, the will, and conceptual consciousness, and avoiding views of what brings about the personal realization of the realm of Buddha knowledge, which Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and followers of other paths given to dualistic views cannot possibly know. This is what I mean by the teaching of the way of personal attainment. Mahāmati, this is what characterizes the way of personal attainment and the way of instruction, and this is what you and the other bodhisattvas should cultivate." The Bhagavan then repeated the meaning of this in verse. "My teaching includes 2 ways, attainment and instruction. Instruction for beginners, attainment for practitioners." Mahāmati again asked the Buddha, "Bhagavan, the Tathāgata once said, 'Do not associate with those who engage in the various kinds of materialist eloquence. Whoever associates with them will embrace desires of the flesh and will not embrace the Dharma.' Bhagavan, why did you say this?" The Buddha told Mahāmati, "Materialists employ all manner of expressions, arguments, metaphors, and embellishments to attract and deceive foolish people. They do not accept the personal understanding of what is real, nor are they aware that their projection of what exists is a delusion. Falling prey to dualities, they confuse simple-minded people and also harm themselves and cannot escape their continuation in other forms of existence. Unable to understand what are nothing but perceptions of their own mind, they do not get free of their attachment to projections of external existence. Thus, those who engage in materialist eloquence do not escape deception and confusion, or the sorrows and afflictions of birth, old age, illness and death." Mahāmati, Shakra was versed in a wide range of discourse and himself authored a treatise on speech. There once was a proponent of materialism who assumed the form of a serpent and entered Shakra's palace and proposed a debate. "I have come to destroy Shakra's 1,000-spoked chariot. If I lose, I will acknowledge his superiority, and he can cut off every one of my heads." Once he declared his intentions, he used Shakra's own arguments to overwhelm him. When Shakra acknowledged defeat, he smashed Shakra's chariot, then returned to the human world. Thus, Mahāmati, the arguments, metaphors, and embellishments of materialists, the expressions of which even beasts are able to employ, attached mislead gods and asuras into becoming attached to views of arising and cessation. How much more so humans? Therefore, Mahāmati, you should keep your distance from materialists, because they are able to promote the causes of suffering. Don't associate with them. Mahāmati, even though materialist doctrines number in the hundreds of thousands, Mahāmati, materialists only speak about the realm of sensory awareness, and it will only be in the final 500 years of later ages that they will create schisms, and their mistaken views of causation will flourish and be accepted by false disciples. Mahāmati, when materialists thus create schisms using the expressions, metaphors, and embellishments of other schools, they will do so based on their own reasoning, not on their own understanding. Mahāmati, followers of other paths have no doctrines concerning personal understanding, nor do any of the countless hundreds of thousands of other teachings expounded by materialists teach personal understanding, nor do they themselves realize the foolishness of materialism. Mahāmati then asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, while the various expressions, metaphors, and embellishments used by materialists and followers of other paths do not involve personal understanding, but rather attachment to their own reasoning, does the Bhagavan not also teach materialism in his exposition of countless different terms to the gods, humans, and asuras who come here from different realms, and not personal understanding? And does he not include arguments that are counted among the wisdom of other schools? The Buddha told Mahāmati, I do not teach materialism, nor that anything comes or goes. I only teach what does not come and what does not go. Mahāmati, what comes refers to what gathers and appears. What goes refers to what scatters and disappears. What neither comes nor goes does not arise and does not cease. The meaning of what I teach cannot be counted among the fabrications of materialists. And how so? Because it is not attached to an external existence that does not exist. Dualistic fabrications cannot affect those who dwell on the perceptions of their own mind. The external world and its forms do not exist. Once you see that they are perceptions of your own mind, fabrications that are perceptions of your own mind do not arise. And when fabrications do not arise, you enter the empty, formless, effortless, threefold gate of liberation, which is why it is called liberation. Mahāmati, I recall once a materialist Brahmin came to where I was staying, and without waiting asked, Gautama, is everything created? I answered, Brahman, that everything is created is the most rudimentary kind of materialism. He asked again, is everything not created? I answered, that everything is not created is the second kind of materialism. He asked again, is everything permanent, or is everything impermanent? Does everything arise, or does everything not arise? I answered, that makes 6 kinds of materialism. Mahāmati, he asked again, is everything the same, or is everything different? Is everything both of these, or is everything neither of these? Or does everything appear due to multiple causes? I answered, that makes 11 kinds of materialism. Mahāmati, he asked again, is everything neutral, or is everything karmic? Is there a self, or is there no self? Does this world exist? Or does this world not exist? Or is there another world? Or is there no other world? Is there liberation? Or is there no liberation? Is everything momentary? Or is everything not momentary? And are space, cessation, and nirvana created, Gautama? Or are they not created? And is there an intermediate existence? Or is there no intermediate existence? Mahāmati, I answered, Brahman, all these things of which you speak are materialism. This materialism of yours is not what I teach. I only teach that the cause of the three realms and their various ills is the habit energy of fabrications and projections without beginning. But because you are unable to see that they are merely perceptions of your own mind, you give rise to projections and objectify an external existence. According to followers of other paths, awareness arises from the threefold combination of a self, sense organs, and sense objects, but not according to me. Brahman, I do not teach that there are causes, nor do I teach that there are no causes. I only teach causation as a fabrication of projecting the existence of a subject and an object. This is not something you or others who accept the continuity of a self can understand. Mahāmati, nirvana, space, and cessation are not three things. They are only counted as three things. Furthermore, Mahāmati, this materialist Brahman asked me again, are ignorance, desire, and karma the cause of the three realms, or are they not the cause? I answered, both of these are also materialism. He asked again, does everything have individual and shared characteristics? I answered, this is also materialism. Brahman, any movement of the mind involving projection of an external object is materialism. Again, Mahāmati, the Brahman asked, is there any teaching that is not materialism? I am versed in all the doctrines of other schools, and in the different expressions, arguments, metaphors, and embellishments of their teachings. I answered, there is, Brahman, but it is not one of yours. It is not a fabrication, and it is not a doctrine, and it is not a teaching. But it is not a teaching, and its various expressions are not embellished with arguments and metaphors. The Brahman asked, what is it that is not materialism? Not a doctrine, and not a teaching. I answered, Brahman, there is something that is not materialism, but it is something you followers of other paths cannot understand, due to your mistaken attachment to the fabrication and projection of external existence. Projections do not arise when you understand that existence and non-existence are nothing but perceptions of your own mind. And projections do not arise when you do not grasp external objects. The permanent cessation of projection. This is what I mean by what is not materialism. This is my teaching and not yours. Briefly, Brahman, if consciousness involves coming or going, birth or death, joy or suffering, disappearance or appearance, contact or grasping, or if it involves attachment to a combination or continuity, or to a desire or a cause, Brahman, if it involves anything like this, it is your materialism and not mine. Mahāmati, after this materialist Brahman had asked in this manner, and I had answered in this manner, he was silent. Then he left without saying another word, But he thought about his own understanding and said to himself, "This Buddhist monk is incomprehensible. He teaches no arising, no form, no cause, and that once someone becomes aware that what they perceive are their own projections, projections do not arise." Mahāmati, you asked me earlier why I said anyone who associated with those who engage in materialist eloquence would embrace desires of the flesh and not the Dharma. This is why. Mahāmati asked the Buddha, "Bhagavan, what does it mean to embrace desires of the flesh or the Dharma?" The Buddha told Mahāmati, "It is excellent, excellent indeed, that you should think to ask about the meaning of such expressions on behalf of beings in the future. Listen carefully and ponder it well, and I will tell you." Mahāmati bowed and said, "May we be so instructed." The Buddha told Mahāmati, "Desires of the flesh refer to those that involve clutching or letting go, touching or tasting, attachment to external sensation, addiction to dualistic views, and rebirth once more in a suffering body, along with the anxiety, grief, and affliction of birth, old age, and death. All such tribulations arise from desire and from associating with materialism or materialists. This is what I and other Buddhas refer to as desires of the flesh. This is what is meant by embracing desires of the flesh and not embracing the Dharma. And to what, Mahāmati, does embracing the Dharma refer? This means understanding what are nothing but perceptions of one's own mind, seeing that beings have no self, and that dharmas have no self, not giving rise to projections, becoming versed in the higher stages, transcending the mind, the will, and conceptual consciousness, having one's forehead anointed with wisdom by all the Buddhas, embracing and fulfilling the 10 inexhaustible vows, and gaining effortless mastery of all teachings. This is what is meant by the Dharma. It means not falling prey to any view, any fabrication, any projection, any existence, or duality. Mahāmati, foolish people and most followers of other paths fall prey to such dualities as permanence and annihilation, but not the wise. Those who accept the doctrine of no causation give rise to views of permanence, while those who accept the destruction of external causes and the non-existence of conditions give rise to views of annihilation. Mahāmati, not seeing anything originate or persist or cease is what I mean by the Dharma. Mahāmati, you and the other bodhisattvas should reflect on what is meant by desires of the flesh and the Dharma." The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. The different kinds of materialism, the false teachings of other paths, projections of cause and effect, include no personal attainment. Only this personal attainment of mine transcends cause and effect. Thus I tell disciples, avoid materialist views. What is only mind cannot be seen, nor is a divided mind perceived. When grasper and grasp do not exist, the eternal and momentary are both transcended. The slightest movement of the mind, this is what materialism is, unmoved by projections, are those who see their own mind. It comes means something appears. It goes means something disappears. Those who know what comes and goes stop giving rise to projections. Permanence or impermanence, effects or no effects, this world or another world, these comprise the materialist way. Mahāmati once more asked the Buddha, "Bhagavan, when you speak of nirvana, what do you mean by nirvana?" As followers of other paths also imagine something. The Buddha told Mahāmati, "Listen carefully and ponder it well, and I will explain this to you." Followers of other paths do indeed imagine something as nirvana, but what they imagine does not accord with nirvana. Mahāmati said, "May we be so instructed, Bhagavan." The Buddha told Mahāmati, "For followers of some paths it is the cessation of the skandhas, the dhatus and the ayatanas, or the absence of worldly desires, or the impermanence of everything they see, or the non-arising of any and all mental activity, or not thinking about past, future, or present states, or putting an end to all sensation, like the extinguishing of a lamp or a fire, or the destruction of a seed, or not giving rise to projections. These are among their conceptions of nirvana. But nirvana, Mahāmati, is not the destruction of anything. Mahāmati, some think liberation is going from one place to another place, a place where thoughts of an external world cease, like when the wind stops. Some think eliminating the view of the knower and the known is liberation. Some see permanence and impermanence as liberation. Some see the different forms they perceive as the cause that gives rise to suffering, and they envision them ending. Unaware that these are nothing but perceptions of their own mind, they become afraid of forms and develop a deep desire to see no form, which they think of as nirvana. Some think nirvana is knowing what is indestructible among the individual or shared characteristics of internal or external dharmas of the past, the present, or the future. Some think of nirvana as the destruction of everything, including oneself, person, being, and life. Relying on the immature wisdom of followers of other paths, some see a primordial nature and a cosmic being, and between the two, the cosmic being producing an underlying nature, which is likened to a kind of primordial force, which then transforms into tendencies, and the tendencies then acting as the creator, which they view as nirvana. Some say it is the end of good and bad karma. Some say it is the end of affliction, and some say it is wisdom. Some see a supreme power actually responsible for birth and death as nirvana, and some say there is no other cause of birth and death than giving birth to one another, and due to their ignorance they think this is nirvana. That this very attachment is the cause is lost on these ignorant beings. Followers of still other paths say finding what leads to truth is nirvana. Some see tendencies and the sameness of the combinations that tendencies give rise to, or their difference, or both of these, or neither, and think this is nirvana. And some see what nature gives rise to as nirvana, things such as the patterns in a peacock feather, or a gemstone, or the sharpness of a thorn. Mahāmati, some think nirvana is understanding the 25 realities, or upholding the 6 virtues that protect king and kingdom. Some see time as the creator, and the seasons as the world, and knowing this as nirvana. Some say it is something that exists. Some say it is something that does not exist. And some say it is knowing what exists and what does not exist. And some imagine nirvana as seeing the difference between nirvana and whatever one is aware of. All these different fantasies, advanced by followers of other paths, fail to establish what they aim to establish and are rejected by the wise. Mahāmati, all these conceptions of nirvana suffer from duality, and none of these conceptions of nirvana of other paths includes anything that arises or ceases. Mahāmati, each of these nirvanas of other paths has its own doctrine, but none of them are based on the examination of wisdom. Such conceptions unsettle and disturb the mind, and none of them results in nirvana. According to what I teach, Mahāmati, nirvana means fully understanding that it is nothing but the perception of one's own mind, and is not something that exists externally, and that it transcends the four possibilities. It is seeing what is real, without falling prey to dualistic projections that are perceptions of one's own mind, and that are devoid of perceiver or perceived. It is not accepting the validity of any rule or measure, or following anyone ignorant of reality. Rather, it is letting everything go in favor of attaining the personal realization of Buddha knowledge, whereby one knows the two kinds of no-self, avoids the two afflictions, removes the two obstructions, gets free of the two kinds of death, advances to the higher stages and the profound samadhi of the illusory of the Tathāgata stage, and transcends the mind, the will, and conceptual consciousness. What I call nirvana, Mahāmati, is what you and the other bodhisattvas should cultivate. And you should distance yourselves at once from the views of nirvana held by followers of other paths. The Bhagavan then repeated the meaning of this in verse. When followers of other paths view nirvana, they all give rise to fantasies, but the products of imagination are not the means to liberation. Blind to bondage and the one who binds, no skillful means in sight, such people imagine liberation, but a liberation that never arrives. The different means to knowledge, the philosophies of other schools, all are foolish fantasies. None leads to liberation. All these fools of other paths misperceive cause and effect, preach existence and non-existence, from which there is no liberation. Fools delight in fantasies, not in hearing about the truth. Words produce three kinds of pain, which only truth can eradicate. Like an image in a mirror appears but isn't there, in the mirror of projection, fools all see their double. Who doesn't know the mind or conditions gives rise to projections of duality? Once they know the mind and the world, projections no longer arise. The mind is a multiplicity, devoid of seeing or what is seen. Objects appear and disappear, also fools imagine. The three realms as projections, external objects as not existing, perceptions as fabrications, fools can't comprehend. All sutras speak of projection, but never get free of words, because apart from language, there is nothing of which to speak. Mahāmati then asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, please tell us about complete enlightenment, so that by better understanding the essential nature of a Tathagata, I and the other bodhisattvas might enlighten ourselves and also enlighten others. The Buddha told Mahāmati, "Ask whatever you want, and I will answer accordingly." Mahāmati said, "Bhagavan, are the Tathagatas, the Arhats, the fully enlightened ones, created or not created? The result or the cause? What sees or what is seen? What teaches or what is taught? What knows or what is known? Or are they different or not different from such terms as these?" The Buddha told Mahāmati, "In regard to such terms as these, the Tathagatas, the Arhats, the fully enlightened ones, are neither the result nor the cause." And why not? Because both would be wrong. Mahāmati, if Tathagatas were the result, they would be created and would be impermanent. And if they were impermanent, then every result would be a Tathagata, which is something neither I nor any other Buddha would want. But if they were not created, they would not attain anything, and their cultivation would be empty, like a rabbit's horns or a barren woman's child, because it would not exist. Mahāmati, if they are not the result and not the cause, then they neither exist nor do not exist. And if they neither exist nor do not exist, then they are beyond the four possibilities. The four possibilities refer to the mundane world. If they are beyond the four possibilities, then they are not subject to the four possibilities. And it is because they are not subject to the four possibilities that they are perceived by the wise. This is how the meaning of all expressions about a Tathagata should be understood by the wise. As I have said, there is no self in anything, by which you should understand that by no self what I mean is the non-existence of a self. Everything exists as itself and does not exist as another, like a cow or a horse. For example, Mahāmati, a cow does not exist as a horse, and a horse does not exist as a cow. In reality, they neither exist nor do not exist, but they do not exist as themselves. Thus, Mahāmati, there is nothing that does not have its own characteristics, or that does have its own characteristics. But that they have no self is something foolish people cannot understand due to their projections. Thus, the emptiness, the non-arising, and the absence of the self-existence of things are to be understood like this. In the same manner, Tathagatas are neither different from the skandhas, nor are they not different. If they were not different from the skandhas, they would be impermanent. And if they were different, then their practice would be useless. Now, two of anything are necessarily different. For example, a bull's horns are alike. Thus, they aren't different. But because their dimensions vary, they are different. This is true of everything. Mahāmati, if a bull's right horn is different from its left horn, then the left horn is different from its right horn. Thus, in terms of dimensions, every form is different. But Tathagatas, Mahāmati, are neither different nor not different from the skandhas, the dhatus, or the ayatanas. In the same manner, Tathagatas and liberation are neither different nor not different. Thus, Tathagatas are said to be liberated. If Tathagatas were different from liberation, they would be composed of material characteristics. And if they were composed of material characteristics, they would be impermanent. However, if they were not different, there would be no distinctions among the attainments of practitioners. But distinctions are seen among practitioners. Hence they are neither different, nor are they not different. In the same manner, what knows and what is known are neither different nor not different. Mahāmati, if what knows and what is known are neither different nor not different, then they are neither permanent nor not permanent, neither cause nor effect, neither created nor not created, neither perceiving nor perceived, neither characterizing nor characterized, neither the skandhas nor different from the skandhas, neither what speaks nor what is spoken, neither the same nor different, nor both, nor neither. And because they are neither the same nor different, nor both, nor neither, they are beyond all measure. What is beyond all measure is inexpressible, and what is inexpressible does not arise, and what does not arise does not cease, and what does not cease is completely still. And what is completely still is essentially nirvana. And what is essentially nirvana is neither a result nor a cause. And what is neither a result nor a cause has no objective support. And what has no objective support is beyond the reach of all fabrications. And what is beyond the reach of all fabrications is a tathāgata. A tathāgata is complete enlightenment. Mahāmati, this is what is meant by the complete enlightenment of a Buddha. The complete enlightenment of a Buddha, Mahāmati, is beyond the reach of the senses. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. Beyond the reach of the senses, neither a result nor a cause, beyond what perceives and what is perceived, beyond what sees and what is seen. The skandhas, the nidanas, and enlightenment, don't view them as the same or different. If there is nothing to see, how can anything be distinguished? It isn't created, nor not created. It isn't a result or a cause. It isn't the skandhas or inside the skandhas, nor is it anywhere else. Nor is it something that exists, something someone imagines, nor does it not exist. It is just like everything else. Because it exists, it doesn't. Because it doesn't, it does. Its non-existence cannot be grasped, nor can its existence be imagined. Confused about self and no self, mired in nothing but words, those who drown in dualities harm themselves and the world. Who gets free from all errors truly sees my way. This is called seeing truly, not slandering the guide. Mahāmati once more asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, according to the Bhagavan, the sutras are concerned with what neither arises nor ceases. The Bhagavan has also said, what neither arises nor ceases is another name for Tathāgatas. Bhagavan, is it because of their non-existence that he says they neither arise nor cease, or is it because it is another name for Tathāgatas? The Buddha replied, I say nothing arises or ceases because the categories of existence and non-existence do not apply. Mahāmati replied, Bhagavan, if nothing arises, then there is nothing for us to grasp. But if nothing arises, is there not something in the name? Could you please explain this? The Buddha told Mahāmati, Excellent, excellent indeed. Listen carefully and ponder this well, and I will explain and clarify this for you. Mahāmati replied, May we be so instructed. The Buddha told Mahāmati, "I teach that Tathāgata does not exist, but also that nothing can be grasped in what neither arises nor ceases. Also, it neither arises nor ceases because it is not dependent on conditions. And yet, neither is it without meaning. What I teach, Mahāmati, is that this is the name for a Tathāgata's projection body. What does not arise is beyond the understanding of followers of other paths, Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, or bodhisattvas of the first 7 stages. Mahāmati, what does not arise is another name for a Tathāgata. Mahāmati, it is like with Indra, Chakra, and Purandara. Every such entity has multiple names, but because they have multiple names does not mean they have multiple existences, or that they don't have their own existence. In the same manner, Mahāmati, I have had countless hundreds of thousands of names in this karmic world, but when foolish people hear someone speak my names, they do not know they are different names of the Tathāgata. Mahāmati, some beings know me as Tathāgata. Others know me as Sarvajñā, the all-knowing, or as Buddha, the enlightened, or as Nāta, the refuge, or as Svayambhu, the self-aware, or as Nayaka, the teacher, or as Vinayaka, the philosopher, or as Parinayaka, the guide, or as Rishi, the ascetic, or as Brahma, or as Vishnu, or as Ishvara, or as Pradhana, the victor, or as Kapila, or as Bhutanta, the real, or as Soma, the moon, or as Surya, the sun, or as Rama, the king, or as Anutpada, the non-arising, or as Anirodha, the unceasing, or as Śūnyatā, the empty, or as Tathāta, the thus, or as Satya, the truth, or as Bhutatattva, the reality, or as Dharmata, the true nature, or as Nirvana, or as Nitya, the eternal, or as Samatha, the impartial, or as Advaya, the non-dual, or as Niravasa, the imageless, or as Mukti, the liberated, or as Jnana, the path, or as Manomaya, the projection. Mahāmati, like the moon in the water, which is neither in nor not in the water, I have been known in this and other worlds by neither more nor less than countless hundreds of thousands of names such as these. The ignorant, however, fall prey to dualities, and are thus incapable of knowing me. Though they might revere and honor me, they do not understand the meaning of terms, or know how to distinguish names, and do not understand the way of personal understanding, but cling instead to various texts and explanations. They imagine that what neither arises nor ceases is something that does not exist, and do not realize it is another name for a Tathāgata, as with Indra, Chakra, and Purandara. Because they do not understand where the way of personal understanding eventually leads, they become attached instead to whatever is said about things. Mahāmati, such fools say things like this: the meaning is like the words. Words and meaning are not separate. And how so? Because meaning has no substance. There is no meaning outside of words, but only what resides in words. Mahāmati, those in possession of such immature wisdom do not understand the essential nature of words. They do not understand that words arise and cease, while meaning does not arise or cease. Mahāmati, all words are dependent on language. Meaning is not because it transcends existence and non-existence. It is not subject to arising, and it has no substance. Mahāmati, the Tathāgatas do not teach teachings dependent on language, because what exists or does not exist cannot be found in language, but only by those who do not depend on language. Mahāmati, if someone says what is taught by a Tathāgata is dependent on language, they speak falsely. The Dharma transcends language. Therefore, Mahāmati, neither I nor any other Buddha or bodhisattva speaks a single word or responds with a single word. And why not? Because the Dharma transcends language. It is not that we teach a meaningless meaning, but that words are the projections of beings. Still, Mahāmati, if we did not say anything, our teaching would come to an end. And if our teaching came to an end, there would be no Buddhas, bodhisattvas, pratyeka Buddhas, or Shravakas. And if there were none, who would teach and who would listen? Therefore, Mahāmati, bodhisattvas are not attached to words, but expound the teaching of the sutras according to what is appropriate. Because the longings and afflictions of beings are not the same, I and other Buddhas teach different teachings to beings with different levels of understanding, so that they will get free of the mind, the will, and conceptual consciousness, not so that they will attain the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. Mahāmati, to understand that nothing exists except as a perception of one's own mind, and to transcend dualistic projections, bodhisattvas bodhisattvas rely on meaning and not on language. If a noble son or daughter relies on language, they will not only harm their own understanding of ultimate truth, they will not be able to awaken others. As long as they rely on their attachment to mistaken views, they might teach others, but without understanding the characteristics or stages of the different teachings, and without understanding their expressions. But once they understand the characteristics and stages of the different teachings, and understand their expressions, and become fully versed in their essential meaning, they will be able to use the bliss of true freedom from projections, and their own delight therein, to establish beings everywhere in the Mahayana. Mahāmati, those who embrace the Mahayana embrace Buddhas, bodhisattvas, pratyeka Buddhas, and Shravakas. Those who embrace Buddhas, bodhisattvas, pratyeka Buddhas, and Shravakas embrace all beings. Those who embrace all beings embrace the Dharma. Those who embrace the Dharma do not bring an end to the lineage of Buddhas. Those who do not bring an end to the lineage of Buddhas know how to enter the most exalted of abodes. And knowing how to enter the most exalted of abodes, bodhisattvas are able to constantly teach others and establish them in the Mahayana. By their mastery of the 10 powers, they manifest different guises based on their understanding of the characteristics of the physical types, aspirations, and afflictions of other beings, and they teach them what is truly so. What is truly so does not vary. What is truly so does not come or go. What puts an end to all fabrications, this is what is truly so. Mahāmati, a noble son or daughter should not embrace or cling to anything that is said, because what is real is beyond language. Mahāmati, if one person points to something with their finger, and a foolish person looks at their finger, they won't know what they really mean. In the same manner, foolish people become attached to the finger of words, and because they never look away from it, they are never able to discover the true meaning beyond the finger of words. Likewise, Mahāmati, an infant should eat cooked rice, not uncooked rice. If someone feeds it uncooked rice, that person must either be mad or not know how to prepare rice. Mahāmati, the same is true of what neither arises nor ceases. Those who don't make an effort don't become skilled. Thus, you should focus your efforts on becoming skilled and not on words, as if you were looking at someone's fingertip. Thus, Mahāmati, you should focus your efforts on the true meaning. The true meaning is subtle and silent. It is the cause of nirvana. Words are linked to projections, and projections are tied to birth and death. Mahāmati, the true meaning, is learned from the learned. Mahāmati, those who are learned esteem meaning and not words. Those who esteem meaning don't accept the scriptures and doctrines of other schools. They don't accept them for themselves, nor do they cause others to accept them. Thus they are called learned and virtuous. Hence, those who seek meaning should approach those who are learned, those who esteem meaning. And they should distance themselves from those who do the opposite, and who attach themselves to words. Once again, by means of the Buddha's spiritual power, Mahāmati Bodhisattva asked the Buddha, "Bhagavan, your proclamation of what neither arises nor ceases is not unique." And why not? Because there are other schools whose causes neither arise nor cease. Also, the Bhagavan teaches that the realms of space, non-analytic cessation, and nirvana neither arise nor cease. Bhagavan, other schools teach that every world arises from causes, while the Bhagavan teaches that every world arises from the conditions of ignorance, desire, karma, and projection. But the causes of the one and the conditions of the other are merely different words. The same is true for the causes and conditions of external objects, for which there is no difference between the explanations of the Bhagavan and those of other schools. Instead of their 9 things that neither arise nor cease, such as elementary particles, a first cause, a paramount power, or a creator, the Bhagavan also teaches that whatever exists neither arises nor ceases, because its existence or non-existence cannot be determined. Other schools also teach that the 4 elements are indestructible, that their essential nature neither arises nor ceases, that they are eternal, and that the 4 elements extend everywhere without losing their essential nature. What the Bhagavan teaches is also like this, which is why I said it was not unique. I hope the Bhagavan can explain how it differs, how it is unique, and how it excels that of other schools. But if there isn't any difference, then the teachers of other schools must also be Buddhas based on their teaching of what neither arises nor ceases. The Bhagavan has said it is impossible for multiple Buddhas to appear in the world at the same time. But according to the foregoing, if there isn't any difference, there would be multiple Buddhas at the same time. The Buddha told Mahāmati, "My teaching of what neither arises nor ceases is not the same as the teaching of what neither arises nor ceases taught by members of other schools." And how so? According to these members of other schools, there is something that exists that has the characteristics of neither arising nor changing. Mind does not fall prey to such categories as existence or non-existence. Mahāmati, mind transcends the categories of existence and non-existence. It is not subject to arising or ceasing. Neither does it exist, nor does it not exist. It does not exist because it appears just as an illusion or a dream does. But then, how does it not exist? Because form lacks any perceptible characteristics of self-existence, it appears but does not appear. It is perceived but is not perceived. Therefore, whatever exists neither exists nor does not exist. Once you realize it is nothing but the perception of your own mind, its projections do not arise. You dwell in peace and happiness, and worldly concerns cease. What ignorant and foolish people do is give rise to projections, but not the wise. Projections are not real, like cities of Gandharvas or their conjured residents. Mahāmati, foolish people imagine their conjured residents, such as merchants and shopkeepers, entering and leaving those Gandharvan cities, and that they really enter and leave, when in fact no one enters or leaves. It is merely due to their projections. Likewise, Mahāmati, the confusion foolish people give rise to about what neither arises nor ceases is neither created nor not created. It is like the appearance of conjured beings. In truth, nothing arises or ceases. There is no existence or non-existence. This is true of all things. They neither arise nor cease. Foolish people fall prey to falsehood and give rise to projections of arising and ceasing, but not the wise. What is false is not so, and it is no different with the projection of self-existence. Though projections seem to be different, they are attachments to the self-existence of things due to not seeing clearly. Those who do not see clearly never get free of projections. Therefore, Mahāmati, seeing what has no form is better than not seeing what has form. Seeing what has form is the cause of rebirth. Hence, it isn't better. Mahāmati, where there is no form, projections do not arise. What neither arises nor ceases is what I call nirvana. Mahāmati, nirvana is to see the meaning of what is truly so, and to get free from the net of thoughts of previous projections. To attain the personal realization of the noble knowledge of a tathāgata, this is what I call nirvana. The Bhagavan then repeated the meaning of this in verse. To refute the doctrine of arising, to establish the truth of non-arising, I explain this teaching. Fools can't understand. Although things don't arise, they don't exist as nothing, as Gandharvan cities, illusions, or dreams. They exist, but without a cause. Why don't things arise or exist by themselves? Why are they empty? Because apart from combinations, nothing appears to wisdom. Thus, I teach what is empty, what doesn't arise, and is not self-existent. When this and that combine, something appears but doesn't exist. Analysis finds no combination, despite what other schools claim. As dreams, illusions, or strands of hair, mirages or Gandharvan cities, such are the things of the world. They appear, but without a cause. To refute doctrines of causation, I proclaim the truth of non-arising. Because I proclaim non-arising, the Dharma continues unbroken, but the radiance of no causation frightens the followers of other paths. Mahāmati then asked in verse, how and caused by what And why do things arise, and how do they come together, according to this doctrine of no causation? The Bhagavan then replied in verse, "When created things are examined as neither having nor not having a cause, the doctrine of arising and cessation is undone by what one sees." Mahāmati then asked in verse, "Does non-arising mean non-existence, or does it wait upon a cause? A name should not mean nothing. Could you please explain?" The Bhagavan then replied in verse, "Non-arising isn't due to non-existence, nor does it wait upon a cause, nor does a name mean something exists, nor does a name have no meaning. Beyond the reach of other paths, Pratyeka Buddhas and Shravakas, beyond the 7 stages, this is the realm of non-arising. Beyond causes and conditions, likewise beyond all actions, resting on nothing but mind, this, I say, is non-arising. Things not arising from causes, neither existing nor not existing, beyond perceiver and perceived, this, I say, is non-arising. The mind without an object, beyond the 2 modes of reality, transforming one's very ground, this, I say, is non-arising. No external existence or non-existence, no grasping by the mind, putting an end to every view, this, I say, is non-arising. When something is thus distinguished as empty and without self-existence, it isn't empty because it's empty. It's empty because it doesn't arise. When causes and conditions combine, something arises and something ceases. Aside from causes and conditions, nothing else arises or ceases. Aside from causes and conditions, there isn't something else that exists, something the same or different, despite what other schools say. Existence or non-existence doesn't arise. There is no existence or non-existence, except when combinations change. Neither of these apply. It is only according to convention. Mutual dependence becomes a chain. Apart from the chain of causation, arising has no meaning. Arising doesn't arise if it doesn't exist. The error of other paths is thus avoided. I only speak of a chain of causation when fools can't understand. As for something else arising, apart from the chain of causation, this is the doctrine of no causation, which denies the meaning of the chain. Just as a lamp illuminates forms, perception of the chain does the same. Thus, apart from the chain, something else would exist. What doesn't arise doesn't exist. Its existence is like that of space. Apart from the chain of causation, the wise find nothing to see. But there is something that doesn't arise, something attained by the wise, the arising of which doesn't arise, the forbearance of non-arising. If in every world whatever you see is a chain, everything as a chain, from this you will attain samadhi. Ignorance, desire, and karma, these are the interior chain. A bow drill, a lump of clay, a wheel, and seeds make up the outsides. If something else existed, something arising from causes, this would negate the chain's meaning, and thus it wouldn't succeed. If something arose that didn't exist, which link would be its cause? Things give rise to each other. This is what causation means. Solidity, moisture, heat, and movement. These are the projections of fools. Nothing else exists but their combinations. Thus I teach no self-existence. Like doctors who treat diseases don't have particular doctrines, because diseases differ, they prescribe different cures. For the sake of other beings, to rid them of afflictions, I gauge their level of understanding before I decide what to teach. But different afflictions and understandings don't mean different teachings. I only teach one path, the path of the Mahayana. Mahāmati Bodhisattva once more asked the Buddha, "Followers of other paths all give rise to projections of impermanence. The Bhagavan also teaches that all phenomena are impermanent, that they arise and they cease. What does this mean? Is this wrong or is this right? And how many kinds of impermanence are there?" The Buddha told Mahāmati, "Followers of other paths have 7 kinds of impermanence, none of which are taught by me. And what are the 7? Some say impermanence is when something is created and then abandoned. Some say impermanence is the destruction of shape. Some say impermanence is form. Some say impermanence is the process during which form changes, and that because it involves an uninterrupted dissolution, like the transformation of milk to curds, the process of change is imperceptible, but that impermanence destroys whatever is there. Some say impermanence is something that exists. Some say impermanence is something that exists and does not exist. And some say impermanence is something that does not arise, but is inherent in all phenomena. Mahāmati, according to impermanence as something that exists and does not exist, the individual characteristics of the 4 elements and what they comprise are destroyed, but the self-existence of the 4 elements is imperceptible and does not arise. According to impermanence as something that does not arise, neither the existence nor non-existence of anything arises, and even the most careful analysis yields nothing, neither permanence nor impermanence. This is the meaning of what does not arise, not of what does arise. This is what characterizes impermanence as something that does not arise. Those who don't understand this fall prey to the view of followers of other paths that impermanence is something that arises. Mahāmati, as for impermanence being something that exists, this is a projection of one's own mind, and not of the existence of permanence or impermanence. What does this mean? It means that the existence of impermanence itself is not destroyed. Mahāmati, the non-existence of what exists is the result of impermanence. Except for impermanence, there is nothing that can cause what exists not to exist. It is like a club or a roof tile or a rock. It breaks things. Clearly, it is no different for anything else. For in terms of existence and impermanence, there is no difference between cause and effect. If this is impermanence and this is the effect, and there is no difference between cause and effect, then everything that exists would be permanent, as nothing would exist as a cause. Mahāmati, the non-existence of what exists does have a cause, but not one fools are aware of. A cause does not produce an unrelated effect. If it did, anything that exists could be impermanence. And if the effect were unrelated, there would be no difference between cause and effect, even though they were clearly different. In the case of impermanence as something that exists, this would amount to the existence of an effect-producing cause. But if that were so, whatever exists would never end. If everything that exists amounted to an effect-producing cause, then impermanence itself would be impermanent. And because impermanence would be impermanent, everything that exists would not be impermanent, but permanent. As for impermanence being inherent in whatever exists, this is contradicted by the three periods of time. Either it is destroyed along with past forms, or it does not arise in the future, because such forms do not arise, or it is destroyed along with present forms. Forms are different combinations of the four elements, and the essential nature of the four elements and what they comprise is not subject to destruction, as it neither varies nor does it not vary. But while, according to followers of other paths, the four elements are indestructible, it is common knowledge that the four elements and all the forms they comprise throughout the three realms arise and cease to exist. Where, then, do the followers of such paths conceive of impermanence as existing apart from the four elements, and what they comprise, if the four elements do not arise, and their essential nature is not subject to destruction? As for impermanence existing apart from initial creation, there are no other four elements than the four elements, because among the individual characteristics of their different characteristics, no differences can be found. Since they don't differ, they don't create something that does. This kind of impermanence, you should know, involves the non-arising of dualities. As for impermanence being the destruction of shape, this means that the four elements and what they comprise are not destroyed. They are never destroyed. Mahāmati, if one analyzes objects into the finest particles, one observes their destruction, as the shapes of the four elements and what they comprise cannot avoid appearing to differ in terms of their dimensions. But this is not true. But this is not true of the four elements. The four elements are not destroyed. It is the shapes that appear to be destroyed. This falls under the doctrine of the Samkhyas. As for impermanence consisting in form, this means form itself is impermanence. But what is impermanent are shapes, not the four elements. If the four elements were impermanent, this would deny worldly convention. The denial of worldly convention falls under the doctrines of the Lokayatas, who view whatever exists as nothing but words, and individual characteristics as not arising. As for impermanence consisting in change, this means that the existence of form appears to differ, not the four elements. For example, when we use gold to make ornaments, its appearance changes, but the nature of gold is not destroyed. It is only the ornaments that are subject to destruction. Thus, changes in whatever else exists are also like this. Such are the various views of impermanence held by followers of other paths, who imagine that when fire destroys the four elements, their individual characteristics are not destroyed. If their individual characteristics were destroyed, the four elements and what they comprise would cease to exist. Mahāmati, my teaching is that what arises is neither permanent nor impermanent. And how so? Because external existence cannot be determined, I teach that the three realms are nothing but mind, and do not teach the arising or ceasing of their different characteristics. As for the four elements coming together and differentiating, the four elements and what they comprise are projections of the duality of subject and object. By understanding that dualistic views are projections, one gets free from the dualistic views of external existence and non-existence, and one sees them as nothing but perceptions of one's own mind. Projections arise when you think about doing something, not when you do nothing. Avoid projections of the existence or non-existence of the mind. All mundane, metaphysical, and transcendent dharmas are neither permanent nor impermanent. Those who fail to perceive them as merely perceptions of their own mind end up attached to erroneous, dualistic views. But because followers of other paths do not perceive them as their own projections, such fools have no means by which to know that all mundane, metaphysical, and transcendent dharmas are the result of their own projection of words. This is not something fools are aware of. The Bhagavan then repeated the meaning of this in verse. Something separate from what is created, differences of shape, impermanence of form or existence, these are what other schools see. In the indestructibility of what exists, the persistence of the elements, other schools see impermanence, immersed in a myriad views. For all such schools as these, there is no arising or cessation. But if the elements last forever, what does impermanence mean? Everything is nothing but mind. From this dualities flow. Among the grasping and the grasped, there is no self or its possessions. From Brahma's heaven to the roots of trees, throughout their world encircling branches, what I teach is this: it is all nothing but mind.